Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. And we're about a third of the way through the NFL season. We thought we'd just do a little episode here where we offer our observations, any observation about something that struck you during the season so far. So, Chris, what do you got?
Okay, well, let's start off with the really important stuff. I'm wearing Vikings accoutrement here. I rarely do that on this channel because I never want to jinx them, but they're off this week. So because they're off, I figured I could wear their colors.
Sure it's not a two-week jinx power on this?
No, there's only a 1 week jinx. And so I've not worn their colors on purpose, but I did this week because they are off. So anyway, get some rest, Vikings. Let's go 6-1. But beyond that, so big, this is pretty granular and I think pretty specific, but it's something that really it popped out to me. I was expecting Baltimore's defense, again, pretty granular, to be much better. And especially, so they're now ranked what? Total yards, they're ranked 26th. Total points allowed 21st, allowing 24 points per game. Tua lit them up, obviously, so that kind of moved the average up. But what's really amazing to me is I thought they were going to be a top 10 unit. They always are. And we'll get to you, Jeff. There's a link here to your Giants. But they were supposed to have the best secondary by far. They have 3 first-rounders in their secondary. Think about their corners. They got Pierce, Humphreys. They got one of the best safeties. They got Williams in free agency. And their nickel is Fuller. I mean, this was supposed to be, they're stacked in the secondary and they're getting lit up in the secondary. So, and they're giving up a lot of points in the fourth quarter. So a couple of things. Number one, I don't think they have a pass rush. They obviously just signed JPP to maybe help them out in that regard. But I think a big deal, bigger than most people thought, was the departure of Wink. And Wink Martindale's departure to the Giants was a big deal. I mean, they play a different style of defense now. They don't blitz as much. They don't bring pressure. I think in this NFL, I don't think you can sit back in 2 shell coverage all the time. I think you have to break it up. And so I think with that amount of talent and the expectations going into the seasons, this Baltimore defense, I said it was granular, but it's been very surprising to me. So those are kind of my thoughts.
Why do you think it's happening? Is it's just, you think the pass rush being limited is affecting the secondary?
Yeah, I think they thought their secondary was so good that, hey, look, we don't need that big pass rush, right? Or they moved into a different system, right? So, but you need both. They work hand in glove. And I just think they're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback, obviously. But with that kind of talent in the secondary, you should be able to, succeed. And they're just not.
Yeah, I would agree. I got to throw my Dolphin plug in here. They're basically, their team is predicated on having these corners who can play man to man, and that then opens up the pass rush. They can put more pressure in the blitz package. And they've had 4 of their top 5 cornerbacks out. Just Xavier Howard is the only one somewhat healthy because he's also been injured. But they're not getting any sacks. They're not getting the pressure that they have in years past because there's a really not important balance between your secondary and your pass rush.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Jeff, what is your hot take on the season so far? What struck you?
My hot take for the season so far is the media itself built up many of these teams to be contenders. And what I've seen so far through half the season or almost half the season are those teams that many had penciled in or written as a contender that are now pretenders. And for me, one, Oakland Raiders. I believe the Oakland Raiders at this moment, even with the addition of the wide receiver they have and Hunter Renfrow and Waller and that entire cast, I believe that they are now pretenders. Along with Seattle, or not Seattle, I'm sorry, along with Denver. You have Denver Broncos coming in, signing the big splash of Russell Wilson. And at this moment, they have not even lived up to the expectations of many. Third on my list is Green Bay Packers as well. Even though the wide receiver left, in the offseason or traded within the offseason to Oakland, they have not taken the steps accordingly, as many have predicted. And finally, as well, the Titans, man, I don't know what's going on out there in Tennessee, but that team also was hyped up to be a legitimate contender coming into this season, and they have not lived up to expectation as well. So those are my 4 or 5 teams currently that were considered to be contenders that I feel are on the way out, and they're now pretenders.
Yeah, I do caution you as somebody who year after year I write off the Patriots after they start off 1-3. Good teams, like I wouldn't rule out the Packers. They're going to find a way to continue to win. They're going to get their 10 wins this year and make the playoffs. And
I'm not so sure, Mark.
I didn't notice I didn't say they win the division. I said make the playoffs.
There you go. Thank you.
So anyway, I agree with you. But good teams. It's early in the season. It's still early in the season. Those teams we're talking about are only potentially a game out of first place, and so a lot of season left to play.
I think Jeff is onto something. There are a lot of teams hovering in the 3-3 and 3, 2-4 area, a lot more than I expected, that have underperformed. I mean, you named 4 of them. I'll give you another one, Tampa Bay. I mean, come on now, what's going on? I know Brady's got looking for divorce lawyers, but for Jesus, you got to be able to, to produce. And that team has way too much talent not to be at the top of that division. So,
and what about the Colts, right? They came in the season, right? High expectation.
Yeah,
they had number one rusher in the league. You have a up and coming wide receiver that's there, and the additions that they made in the offseason, you thought like Matt Ryan would take them to the next step, and they just have not produced.
Yeah. There's a lot of mediocrity in the NFL right now. But you're right, Mark. It's early. So, all right, let's hear your take, Mark, because this is always going to be the most interesting one. We know.
Yeah, right. So this is one we've had a lot of focus, rightfully so, over the last 3 weeks on the NFL concussion protocol. And the NFL has looked at it closely. They came up with a revised protocol. They finished their investigation, and they still got it wrong. And they got it wrong because the NFL is always proven to be very reactionary and focused exclusively on optics. What can we do to make it think like make the media think that we're addressing things properly? So they got it wrong in 2 ways. In one way, they're being overly protective, and another way, they're not being protective enough. So don't get me wrong, I'm all for player safety. And I think anyone who watched that Dolphins-Bills game and saw Tua stumbling, thought he had a concussion, and believes that he should not have returned to that game. Like a protocol where the result is Tua couldn't return to that game and needs to go in the concussion protocol. That's right. That's appropriate. But remember where all the outrage came. It didn't really come after the Bills game. The NFL started the NFL Players Association did start their investigation then. But the outrage came on Thursday Night Football when Tua went down with that kind of gruesome head injury in that game. So that tells you one of the important thing, and what I was hoping would have come out of the NFL's investigation, is Tua was tested for concussions every day between Monday and Thursday and came up negative. So that tells you one of 3 things. It tells you the Dolphins were lying and didn't truly test him, but they were cleared of any wrongdoing in the investigation. So that kind of rules that out. And I just don't think any doctor worth his salt or any head coach would put their franchise player at risk knowingly to try to win a game. Secondly, it might tell you that he never had a concussion. And what happened on Thursday Night Football was a sad coincidence. Possible, you never know. And, we're not the doctors. We don't know what happened there. And the third is, which is probably the most likely, is there are some head injuries that kind of go undetected, that the way of testing doesn't diagnose that there truly is a head injury. So, so how did they solve, after the investigation, how did they solve this situation? They did it by adding this single spotter who has the ultimate power to say, while watching a game, if anybody stumbled, he's out and he's in the concussion protocol, and there's no turning back. So So in the Dolphin game the following week against the Jets, everybody saw it, but it hasn't gotten much media attention, is Teddy Bridgewater took a hard hit by Sauce Gardner on a blitz. He went down, rolled over, got up, did not stumble, got up slowly because it was a hard hit, got up, and a spotter, without the benefit of replay, because this decision was made within 15 or 20 seconds, said, I think I saw him stumble. He's out. He's in the concussion protocol. So that, not only did they put him in the, take him out for that game, but because he went in the concussion protocol and Bridgewater has a history of concussions, he wasn't able to be cleared to practice until the following Friday, and cleared to play until Saturday. And the Dolphins made the decision, if a guy's not practicing, we'll go with our third string quarterback to give us a better chance to win. So I personally think the NFL made a huge mistake there. They owe the Dolphins an apology. Can you imagine if that happened to Patrick Mahomes in a game where they're playing against the Bills, and then the following week maybe against the Bucks? Two big games that if you're with your backup quarterback, you're likely to lose. The NFL would have changed their policy already. I think what they should do with the policy, it's fine to have a spotter to say, hey, I think I saw him stumble. Let's pull him out of the game right now. Let's take a look at things. Get the spotter together with the neurological consultant, with the team doctor, look at the video, examine Teddy, and say, if they still have any doubts after having done so, then it's fine, put him in the protocol. But I'm pretty confident that if the spotter had a chance to look at that replay and say, oh, he didn't stumble, I don't know what I was seeing. Because I honestly don't know what the guy was seeing. And so this is just an overreactionary policy that, guess what, affected the Miami Dolphins. And that's just not right. And let's take a couple examples of players who were way more woozy, that in one of them was in that game. Braxton Berrios took a shot by the goal line on a touchdown, got to his knee, was shaking his head, took his helmet off, was spitting, and he went back in the game. I assume that's the same spotter because it was in the Meadowlands or whatever they call their stadium now. Also, I think it was Monday Night Football. Justin Fields took two back-to-back heavy hits and took a long time getting up, went to a knee, and he was way more woozy than Bridgewater. He's fine. There was no outrage there. Anyway, so that's the one part where I think they're being too reactionary. I think it's not that hard. People saw the Tua situation in Buffalo. Anybody watching that game said, whoa, he's got a concussion, or there's something wrong there. That's the situation you're protecting against, not a situation where a guy takes a hard hit, gets up slowly and shakes his head. Because now guess what they're doing? The players are being coached to stay down, because you can't stumble when you're on your back. So they're being coached to stay down.
I'll let you go first, and then I just have a couple of things. So.
Okay. Now let's take a situation where they're not being protective enough. So Kenny Pickett went out last week with a concussion. He was cleared to practice. He's in the concussion protocol, but because he doesn't have a history of concussions, he was cleared to practice for the Steelers on Wednesday and was fully cleared to play on Friday. So he's not going to miss action. So I personally think if a guy's in concussion protocol, a guy has a diagnosed concussion, he shouldn't be playing NFL football 7 days later. So, we have a game this weekend, Sunday Night Football, two guys coming off concussions, and Tua, who's gone 24 days between since his last concussion, and Kenny Pickett, who's gone 7, and God willing, there is no issue coming out. But if Pickett gets hit, gets a concussion, we'll be revisiting this whole thing once again.
Yeah. Jeff, did you want to say anything, or I got a couple things. For me, it's just about consistency, right? I just want it consistently applied. And I don't see consistency. Like right. Mark, you pointed out a number of times where it's just inconsistently applied. And I think what happened with the Dolphins, unfortunately for you, and for Dolphins fan, and honestly for the NFL, is because of Tua's situation, you got the microscope put on you and you got different standards applied to you. And that's unfortunate in my opinion. Number one should be player safety, but it's got to be consistent. Nobody likes, even in life, when there are inconsistencies. We have
the NFL has never been about consistency. We see superstar rules all the time. Right?
No, I agree. Yes, sacks. Look at Tom Brady and it's, and the rough and the passer call.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of examples of this, and they better figure this out because fans are getting pissed off on lots of levels. So,
can I raise my hand of being one of those fans?
yeah, you're definitely one of them. Anyone who writes a letter to the commissioner is one of them. So.
It got kicked back. I didn't have his email address right.
Yeah.
Can I throw in a statement here?
Yes.
So understand, and this is more so along the lines of, I'll just make my statement. Whether they got the decision wrong or not, hindsight is 20/20, right? What should matter, and I think Mark, you definitely, and Chris as well, you alluded to this, is being player safety. And I believe sometimes we just got to take it a step further and protect players from themselves. Someone, and collectively, I know that whether that's junior high school, whatever the case is, college, players want to play. They want to be in the game, right? And the only way sometimes we protect players from themselves is having that pointer, that spotter, that individual who's appointed to, and that's their sole job, right? That's their sole purpose is that week is to watch players and ensuring that players are not getting hurt. And it's unfortunate, the situation that happened with the Dolphins, especially Teddy Bridgewater and his lack of injury and his demand not to come back in the game. It's very unfortunate, but I'll say this as a final comment. The appropriate steps being taken to ensure player safety is one I have come to appreciate. I think there is a direct engagement now by the NFL front office to get it right. And I got it, Chris, they definitely by no means perfect. And yes, there is inconsistency all across the board. But I have come to appreciate the fact that they are not only just talking about it, but they're actually implementing actions to get some of these things corrected. The NFL is not perfect by any means, by no means, and neither is any other sports organization. But any step taken to ensure player safety is far better than no steps being taken at all.
So I do agree with that. I just don't think the NFL did that. Because again, Kenny Pickett's going to play 7 days after a concussion. And they protected a guy in Teddy Bridgewater who didn't need protection. He didn't have a concussion. Sorry.
Again, back to consistency. To me, back to consistency. And as you mentioned earlier, who pays the bills? The big stars, unfortunately, are held to different standards. And that's not right. That's not right. That part needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. And is the NFL perfect in making some of these decisions? By no means are they. But any step taken to ensure player safety is far better than no step being taken at all.
Yeah. I think they should take one last step. And if a guy goes into the concussion protocol legitimately, you see how I threw that in there. He goes into the concussion protocol legitimately, he should be out a minimum of 8 days, which would protect him from playing the following Sunday or Monday.
Right.
I just think, with Kenny Pickett, hopefully he's ready to go. And I think the Dolphins are going to be bringing some pressure on the rookie quarterback. So this is a scary game where the Dolphins line is beat up. The Steelers tend to, even without Watt, they tend to have a good pass rush. And the Dolphins are going to be blitzing to put pressure on this rookie quarterback. And we got two guys coming off a concussion. So I'm hoping that nothing comes out of this game and it's all just a very peaceful game with nothing no head injuries and no media outrage. So.
Yeah, let's hope that for the whole slate on Sunday and Monday. So.
Yeah, I guess that's always the case. So,
okay.
Well, thank you guys for another fantastic show and we'll see you again next time.
Sounds good.